This is my talk about a cloudy Perl, which comes from a job I did a couple of years ago involving lots of cloud stuff. And I found you can use Perl with the cloud, and it works great. So this is in which we use cloud with cPan, and cloud here means Amazon's cloud, which means it funds private space programs. Is this good? So Jeff burns green hydrogen. I looked this up. It's a bit of a surprise for me. I've not seen much liquid hydrogen, but I'm pretty sure it is a clear liquid. Not sure about metallic hydrogen, but liquid stuff is definitely clear. Vapor comes off it. It is burned at high altitude and may produce clouds of water, which, as we know, is a potent greenhouse gas. Are we cool with this? It condenses. Yes, vapor condenses and then reflects long wave IR, and we end up with this nice little graph here. Shockingly enough, this link I put here, I gave a similar talk back in October, and this link still works. This surprised me, but so check it whilst you can. So other clouds do exist. There's not a lot in cPan though, unfortunately. Maybe this could be fixed. I did quite like the Scaleway, who did those nice little ARM, very cheap ARM boxes a few years ago. There's also now, well, of course, there's Google's, and there's a little bit in cPan for Azure. I've not used it. I guess I'm not sure what the differences in scale are, but I think Azure looks at different markets, and there is a little there, but not so much. So by playing nicely, I mean, a few things. Firstly, operating the services that they provide. So they have their big APIs which provide all kinds of things. And the other part is making the configuration changes. So can you deploy services from scratch? Like can you create a storage or servers and that kind of thing? And because the other end of all this is using AWS to actually run your Perl, which you can do in multiple ways, and it works, and it's very nice. I should emphasize that this is not retro computing. It feels like it's getting close, and that worries me about it. I have a different toy for that, which is lots of fun and more fun than this, but is much less useful. So I did a little survey here, and where do you start? Well, first went through the entire kind of back catalogue of the cPan to find things, and there's an awful lot here, 118 plus 119, including the exciting one. But we probably care about support and whatever that means. Finding ones that are kind of actually in Debian, which is my kind of razor for finding out which modules do I prefer, and if it's in Debian, generally wherever you are running stuff, this is the easy low friction option to run your code. There's actually only 12 at the moment in unstable. The really important ones there. Yes.
You say the stable version of something, or they broke it.
Yes. Or Debian broke it, yes. 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 See also any event which was broken in Debian upstream or Debian stable a while ago. And that helped. Yes, so the really useful modules are in there. But we can go even simpler and use the command line client, which works great. The command line client does a lot of things. So we're just simply invoking the API. It also handles all the authentication stuff too, which with Amazon can happen in multiple ways with with things in environments, magic files. If you're in some environments via a magic service on the IP address, can't remember one off the top of my head, some magic web service for introspection, and it handles all this. It's also very well documented, and it, of course, is in Debian and indeed Perl as well, and even what update if you're using the Amazon Linux. So it's a very nice option for being very lazy. If you don't care about your thing being fast, or you're trying to automate a script you've done by hand, it will work very nicely, and there's no real reason not to make use of it. You can abstract it away. There's this very nice module here, which does broadly the same thing. You can see exactly what this thing's doing. It works, and you end up with nice little objects as your response, rather than having to do quite as much parsing yourself, which is nice. And saves you a little bit of typing. Actually, probably doesn't save you typing really. It's conceptually nicer. I think more long-winded, but that's probably for the best for a point of view of making things understandable. Oh yes, it unpacks your JSON for you, which is normally the response format from the Amazon Web Service itself. I think in some cases, I think you get some XML as well for bonus early 2000s feel. So we then will move on to the specialist modules. Most, unfortunately, do look a bit abandoned, but some aren't. So we have the very ancient ones here. So on the one hand, you do have Net Amazon S3. This has been around probably since 2006 or so when S3 launched. The API, I've never quite liked the API, but it works and works reliably. On the other hand, there is this one here, which probably still works, but I've not worked anywhere that uses EC2 the same way that kind of wants you to operate it. So kind of bring up servers like they're physical servers, which no one does anymore really. You either buy some physical servers or you don't, and do the other thing, which we will get to. We could then look at the general purpose modules, which almost seem really easy to create, almost. So Amazon provide a JSON API description for the whole lot of their services. It's almost all in there. They've also got this protocol, which I've not checked the kind of river on that, if that comes downstream from the other one. But either way, there's a lot of machine readable API data there, and in theory, you can parse it all and work with them. I didn't want to look at it myself and went, wow, that's hard, and didn't. But someone else did. So we have pause, which I regard as a remarkable achievement and probably deserves some applause. It is comprehensive. It inhales the entirety of, or for us, the entirety of the Amazon API and does some auto-generated code and gives you an API broadly like that, which you can probably see what it does, and you end up with a nice Perl structure with your result. It is a little problematic. There's not much development happening on it. I've been told that the sheer volume of API has made maintenance rather tricky on it. So I'm not sure if that's recommended for new projects right now, which is a shame because it should be a very nice way forwards. So if anyone does want to keep bashing away at that one, I think it would be very nice for the future. There is an alternative though, which does things by a different approach. So rather than making a CPAN package or with the entirety of the API, they just give you this Amazon API, just gives you the way to an ability to generate your own API wrappers on demand. So it gives you a little command line script which itself inhales the same data as pause using protocol data. It inhales the data and then gives you a little Perl module which wraps that particular API. So rather than trying to do the whole lot, you just do the bits you care about, and you could then debug those yourself and make use of that. Also, I think is a very impressive achievement to have made that work, because I also looked at that data and went, no, that's not a fun way to spend an afternoon. You can go even lighter weight, and that's what I ended up doing for my most recent project. You can invoke the Amazon API by LWP. It broadly works, but I don't understand how they got here. But there's a lot of sharp edges in Amazon's API, which is surprising, seeing the effort they've gone to document and describe, make the whole thing machine readable, and build nice API wrappers. There's a lot of weird stuff. So the HTTP method doesn't make a lot of sense some of the time. Some things are post when they could look more like get. The error responses are absolutely all over the shop. So you might get a HTTP error, which you can handle. Other times you don't. You end up trying to distinguish between does this 400 mean that I've given it the wrong data or something else, or have I invoked the API wrong? You can't really tell. So this is perhaps one of the difficulties behind actually making use of the protocol data. The really hateful ones, though, which horrified me the first time, and every other time afterwards, is the actual form of the request, which should be nice. Should be a nice, fairly well-defined thing. You know, we've had say XML RPC and JSON RPC going back. I'm pretty sure that that stuff predates the Amazon API. Certainly, SOAP does, which defined all this stuff reasonably well. I remember SOAP. That would be nicer, I think. But it can't decide whether it wants an HTML form post format request or a JSON body in your request. It mixes and matches between them, as does, if we're using JSON content type, as does the content type of your request body is inconsistent. No idea why this is. And it is not text/JSON. It is something custom. No idea why, but the way to fix it is to look at the Amazon docs and go copy paste, and then it works. There is no, as far as I can tell, there's no reason as to why. But anyway, with that, you can use this module here, which is very nicely packaged in Debian. So no faff there. And here's the broad bring up process. You end up with a URL with both the region and your particular service, which you know from looking at the Amazon docs. It already tells you, and you can then generate a magic request signature. And of course, all this stuff here about Amazon Key, you have to work out yourself, which isn't so bad. It's in a simple case, it's you've copy pasted it into your console and it works. In the complicated case, you might have to fish that out by doing some weird stuff involving poking around service, poking around at well-known HTTP addresses and extracting it from the Amazon's environment, and that broadly works. You can do it. So that example there was about making the hashmap to view request, which it signs quite a bit of the request. So you've got they protect against request. Stand for that. Replication. No, not that term. Playback requests. There's also this module here as well. I think they broadly do the same thing, and they work. You can assemble your own requests. You now have the doom of handling the response, which is probably, but not necessarily JSON. Again, you have to look at the docs, which are plentiful, and how it ended up like this. I think you're witnessing the scale of Amazon's operation and how much each team hated each other, going back to about 2006. But the docs are good though. We can now move on to the next part, which is using Amazon to write code, which is also rather nice. So they provide two servers, which I was looking at in particular. So these are services for running your Amazon code, running your Perl code rather, on Amazon, but without bringing up a explicit server in EC2. This is quite nice for a lot of reasons, but the biggest, most obvious one is that you've forgotten to employ an ops team and you need to run some code. So you can outsource your ops team to Jeff, who will employ his own ops team and take a cut from that, and all good. You can have your code running without having to worry about disk space or any of those silly matters. So there's this Lambda service here. You come across, I've come across lots of Amazon people who are unaware that it can run containers. The normal way is to have it run a tarball or a zip file, which contains a load of either Node.js code or Python code. But it will very happily run a container for you. You end up with a container with some Perl code, which does something like this, which is a loop which hits a well-known API, which pulls out your next request handle, which comes as a big blob of JSON, which you then pull out, and you can then read your operation from there. So you can use this to plug into Amazon services to handle incoming HTTP requests, or have regularly scheduled jobs, or quite a lot of other things too. Mostly on the event handling model. So your event pops up in response to this request here, which will block indefinitely. Your container may go to sleep and be woken up again. You don't know this. It sits blocking on there until there's stuff to do. You can do it yourself, or you can use the AWS Lambda, which in theory also allows you to deploy your code via a zip file, which I've not tried this myself. This may be an alternative to bringing up an entire container. Might be a bit lighter weight. However, you then have to debug the whole thing. So the code is no longer easily runnable on your own machine anymore. But with Amazon, they have a logging service called X-Ray, where you can blast logs via HTTP at their endpoint, and you can then pick it up in their logging analysis service. And there's this very nice module here, which wraps all that and gives you a way to emit these log messages. The next way you can look at, as well as being able to run a container on demand, they provide a more Kubernetes-like service where you can have a load of services that are persistent and running continuously. It works and does, very happily run Perl. This Fargate concept is a capacity provider, which is a horrible term, I think, which spins up services or servers on demand for you to run your service. It feeds you from hardware. Does not free from paying for hardware. This and Lambda are a remarkably expensive way of running Perl, but they are low faff in general once it's running. You won't end up with disks filling up and so on, which was, when I was looking at this, was my concern as my customer didn't really employ an ops team. So you can work around this by spending money. There we are. There are things which maybe we could look at in the future, and I would like to look at. So Terraform, for them who's not come across this, is a system for doing an automated build of your infrastructure code environment. You have a very nasty configuration language which describes what you want declaratively, and it then assembles it from various providers. They've recently done a thing to replace a nasty language with an actual programming language like Python or Go. In principle, Perl could be there as well. There's also their more open source fork of it as well, OpenTofu. But what may be more promising is Perlumi, which I've not worked with yet, but does have a well-documented process for adding a new language to its kind of input stage. So that might be an interesting thing to look at, to have a fully Perl cloud environment. And thank you. Perl is number one in the world. Any questions?
You think it's a good idea to do any of this?
Yes.
My question is like, would it be interesting for anyone here in the audience or specifically for you to have a native Perl solution to manage AWS resources?
Another service to manage in, sorry, can you say again?
A native Perl possibility to manage AWS resources. Would that be interesting for you or for anyone in the audience?
Certainly sounds interesting.
Perl is also
yeah.
interesting. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Let's chat more.
Yeah.
It does have some capabilities.
Oh,
And,
so
if you already use Perl, it might feel more natural to use it.
a fully Perl solution, that would be interesting.